Welcome to She's the Boss, the podcast where female wellness entrepreneurs talk ambition, money, and ownership out loud. I'm your host, Lee McSwan, a certified holistic nutritionist turned wellness business coach. This is where conversations are unfiltered, the rules of entrepreneurship get rewritten, and nothing is off limits. Money, motherhood, friendships, legacy, wealth, power, and what it really takes to build a life and business on your terms. Beck, welcome to She's the Boss. How are you doing this afternoon? You're across the pond in London. So it's morning for me here in Calgary, but it is early evening for you in London?
Yeah, that's correct. It's about 20 to 6 in the early evening. Beautiful, hot sunshine. Very lucky. So yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Lee, for having me on your show.
Of course. And you recently just moved back to the UK after spending some time in Australia. What were you most excited about coming back to London?
Oh, yeah, great question. Well, I think that, part of me as I've been getting older as well, I've been back, a lot over the years for family events and holidays. I think definitely being here to support my elderly parents. But I also think one of the things I actually miss about English people is a little bit of the dry humor. Definitely a little bit of the dry humor. And I do love London in the summer, I have to say. It's got a certain vibe about it. And it's a very diverse city. So I'm happy to be back and definitely seeing, some quality time with old school friends as well.
How does the food scene compare from London to Australia?
Yeah, the portions are big, definitely. And I've definitely been to the pub a few times in the last couple of weeks. It takes me back to my youth, if I'm honest. It takes me back to my childhood. I've definitely kind of become a little bit more of a dab hand in the kitchen, which, having come from Australia, I live on my own out there, has been actually really nice to get stuck into some recipes and be cooking for others again in a family environment. So yeah, I'm still getting used to it. And there are definitely a few things that I miss, like having probably Japanese restaurants at my fingertips.
Yes, that's so nice.
But no complaint.
There was a new Gordon Ramsay show that came out on Netflix that I watched with my kids. I can't remember what the building was called, but he basically put a bunch of restaurants in the tallest building in London. Have you checked this out yet?
Not yet.
Okay, I'm going to have to find the name of it. I can't even remember the name of the show right now, but it's something about like getting to know Gordon Ramsay. Anyways, he takes on this massive project and the restaurant looks absolutely incredible. I'm drawing a blank on every restaurant title and the name of the show right now, but I will link it in the show notes. Please go there and do some eating for us and report back and let us know how good it is.
I would love to because, I'm slightly traumatized by, the Gordon Ramsay that I kind of grew up with, which was all around Hell's Kitchen.
Yes.
But he is an icon in the UK and he has he's very much a family man, has a beautiful family. I think his eldest, who's a girl, recently got married as well. So yeah, I will definitely report back on that little visit up there when I next go to London.
Yes, his daughter's wedding was a part of the show, and as was his other daughter going off to another culinary institution. It was just so nice to see that side of him. And I also secretly didn't like him because I knew him from Hell's Kitchen as well. And then doing a deeper dive, I was like, oh, he's so passionate about food. He seems like a good man, a good husband, a good father. So I'm like super team Gordon Ramsay right now, but let's bring it back to a conversation about your work. You have been teaching yoga for over 15 years, but somatic breathwork is something that is relatively new for you, right? Like within the last couple of years. So what made you add breathwork and why did it feel like such a necessary piece for you? A quick pause and an ask for you to picture this. $10,000 lands in your account this month, and you didn't add a single session to get there. No extra clients, no longer days, no convincing yourself to say yes to one more person you don't really want to work with because you need the numbers to work. Just the business you already have finally structured so the math works in your favor instead of against it. That feeling, calm, certain, like you finally own something instead of just running on it. That's what changes when your offers are built properly. I put the entire structure of this into one handy resource for you. The offers, the pricing, the forecast, all of it to get you to your 10K month. It's called the 10K month ecosystem map, and it's completely free. Grab it. It's linked in the show notes. And let's get back to the episode.
Very good question. So I actually moved out of Sydney to the northern part of Australia on the coast, near the Queensland border. And I actually was approached, I sort of connected and was approached by a gentleman called Trey Williams, who is a somatic breathwork trainer. He had a very interesting story. So we did catch up a few times. He also came from a yoga background, but he had used somatic breathwork to help him heal not just, I guess, his nervous system and emotionally, but he'd also used it to help heal his physical body. So he had experienced Lyme disease when he was on an overseas trip. And he became very, very sick. And he still does have some challenges from time to time with his immunity and his whole immune system. And he used somatic breathwork. So he started to deep dive into that world and then has built upon that and now teaches it and trains it, not just in Australia. He often takes groups to Bali. That's where I did my advanced facilitation. So you can do various levels with him. You can do like the level 1, which are kind of the basics, or you can move into advanced breath work, facilitation and training, where it incorporates not just the breath, but also a lot of the body work, right? So how to support people physically and help shift the energy within their physical body. So, and he's always improving and building upon those layers of what he's teaching. And so I did my level 1 in November 2023, and it just revealed a lot more for me at that time that was probably fairly stuck and things that I hadn't been able to access before within myself. And everything sort of came to the surface, and it was actually really, for me, the way I described it to him and I describe it to others, it was sort of the icing on the cake as an extra layer on top of the yoga and the philosophy of yoga and some of the other healing, modalities that I had access to.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And with your work, are you still focusing on past trauma and pain?
That was definitely something I was working with for myself. I think, if I'm honest, I was still working through some limiting beliefs, and one of the big realizations that I'm open to share was after I did the level 1 training. We used to, on the final day, we used to take a small group. So we sort of separated into 3 groups, and we used to facilitate, I guess, a workshop on a breathwork journey. There's so many different facets to breathwork, but the fundamentals of it that we were taught is the transformational breath method. So those are generally those longer breathwork journeys that can last up to about 45 minutes. The way that Trey was teaching it, though, and that this is what appealed about the way he approached it, was it was also about, I guess, bringing energy and things to the surface, but then also helping people get back to safety and reground. And I did realize at the end of the level 1 that actually safety was one of the biggest things that I've been working on or been challenged with my whole life. And that's safety in so many ways, safety within myself, safety in my external environment, safety in relationships, safety in the workplace. So that was a beautiful revelation. around that. And I think to layer on top of that, when I then did the advanced course, it became actually a lot more about day-to-day management. Day-to-day management, we all wake up every day feeling a little bit different to the day before.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started to then work through what I call a daily practice, and it's only about 15 minutes long, which I've then shared when I've taken clients on a mentoring coaching journey. And it's been actually one of the most valuable things that I have been able to do for myself just to manage my day-to-day, the daily stresses and the things that really you don't know what's going to happen. When you get up in the morning, you don't know what's going to happen, whether that's, the kids are sick and they don't go to school, or you get to your job and you've got your whole day planned out, and then you get, thrown a curveball, and you're then got to deal with that, and you move away from what you'd planned. And my belief is that we can plan. And I used to be this incessant planner with everything. I was running my household like a military operation because I had so much going on. But I've stepped away from that, because sometimes when you're too fixated in the plan and then things don't quite happen, that can really affect your nervous system and how you manage that. So I then sort of, I guess, built on those transformational breath methods, which are very useful for trauma and pain, and moved more into what's accessible for everyone to do, every single person to do. And you use that as a base and a starting foundation, and then we can build upon that. And I've had feedback from people that follow that very simple daily practice for 15 minutes. Sometimes people will take time out of the day just to revisit it again once or twice throughout the day. That it's really been so fundamentally life-changing just in terms of how they handle themselves. And that's why I'm doing this work and what I've learned from myself through it.
What are some of the things that we could do if we experience like an acute stressor and we need to kind of pull ourselves out of it quickly, versus what we would do kind of like on a daily basis to kind of have that even keel throughout the day with our nervous system?
So generally, if you're hit with an unexpected stress, that would generally push you into a fight or flight mode, right? Where you're, if you look at us way back when, we would, and even at the animal kingdom now, when you go into the flight or fight mode, it's this immediate, I guess, protection of the body to protect you from that stress. It's a biological response. So then what you're wanting to do is your nervous system is on high alert, and you want to get yourself back down to feeling grounded, right? So you're going to be up here with your nervous system, and you want to bring your nervous system back down into regulation. So the types of breaths that we do in that regard are generally nose to nose. So that reactivates your parasympathetic nervous system, and that's your resting state. So that's what we want to do. It's kind of like almost working with the opposites that we have in life. So you're up here high, and then you want to come back down low. And then where you find yourself is back on that grounded middle ground state. They tend to be much slower breaths. And one of the really, really key techniques, which is accessible to everyone, is very typically box breathing. If you're familiar with box breathing, we kind of look at it like a square, moving around a square. And that's all done through the nose. What is also really useful when you've got a little bit more comfortable with tapping into breath, particularly if you're completely new to it, you do really need to kind of like train your lungs and train your diaphragm, and also train your mind and stay calm, is breath holds. So those can also be incredibly valuable. So that would be one technique I would use in that situation.
Amazing. And then you do your daily practice every morning, you said, for about 15 minutes. Is it better to do breath work before our day starts or at the end of the day?
That's a great question. There are different types of breath. So the ones that I just explained, the nose and nose breath, nose in, nose out. Those are the calming breaths. So generally, they are great to do also if you want to get prepared for sleep. The ones that if you woke up one morning and you maybe hadn't had the best night's sleep, or you were probably waking up maybe in an anxious state, you're already thinking about the day ahead and you're feeling a little bit anxious. Sometimes you want to clear that energy out of the body. So you might do some nose inhales and mouth exhales, and that physical pushing of the air out of the body to shift the breath. You might also do some activation breath. So if you're feeling a little bit sluggish and you need to get your brain into operation, you might breathe in through the mouth and out through the mouth, because that activates and awakens the brain rather than bringing the brain back down to a calm state. The other one that some people like to use is alternate nostril breathing. So when we think about, we've got two nostrils, one on the left, one on the right, but that also connects up into the left-hand side and the right-hand side of the brain. And of course, each side of the brain has a different function for us. And sometimes they get out of balance. And that can happen throughout our body. We might have a little bit more pain on the right. We might have more pain on the left. Or we might just feel, a little bit out of balance. That one is a great one to do to bring left and right side brain back into a beautiful balance and feel a little bit more focused on what you've got ahead of you and a task at hand.
Okay, that's super helpful. I've never had it explained to me that way. I didn't know nose in, nose out was good for calming. Yes, and I love box breathing. That's like my go-to because it's just so easy for me to remember and I can get a nice rhythm and flow going. So that's really helpful. Let's talk a little bit about who you're working with. And I know that perimenopause and menopausal women are kind of your people. What attracted you to working with this stage of life specifically? And what was it about this transition that makes breathwork and somatic work so potent for women in this category?
Well, when I actually moved out of Sydney, I was already in perimenopause. I was 48 at the time. And a lot of women listening to this will be able to relate. My moon cycle was doing its own thing on its own time frame.
Gone rogue.
It'd gone rogue. I was experiencing some night sweats and also little sort of jitters in my legs. So I guess, there's a whole roll, electoral roll of symptoms that women can experience. So, and I had a lot of fear around, and fear and contemplation around how was I going to manage this? And I think the question around that was also because I love Western medicine and I love Eastern medicine. And I've been working on bringing the two together. But I will always probably choose a slightly more natural way first if I can. And so it started from there. And the more I actually delved into, I guess, yoga and breath work, where you actually are getting into your physical body. So it's that process of let me step away from my mind, right? And that is one of the values of box breathing, because I think teaching it to people whose minds are chaotic is good, because you can actually get them to focus on the counting, which then, whether you like it or not, automatically kind of takes you away from your thoughts. So I think that was a big piece. And as well, sort of managing the symptoms as well that were coming up. And I literally can say over the last 5 years, you can't predict as a woman what's coming your way. Right. So the best way I found for me, or maybe the easiest way, and a big piece of my own personal journey, was really surrendering and saying, you know what? It's going to do what it's going to do. Let's work on all the things that you can do and give yourself to keep your body healthy, keep your emotions healthy, your mind healthy, and let's deal with everything as it comes up. And that's where breathwork has been one of those amazing tools. I personally suffered a lot of brain fog I sometimes still do, things where it's like those moments where women will be like, somebody just told me her name at a dinner party and I literally can't remember.
Yeah.
What's their name again? What's their name again?
Yeah.
And you feel, it's not a great feeling. You can often feel that you're not your old self. It can feel embarrassing. I know a lot of women become quite introvert during this period of life with the uncertainty. And if you don't have family or a partner to kind of be there by your side to help you navigate that, it can feel scary. It can feel a little bit isolating and a little bit lonely. And so, yeah, that's been a really big thing for me. So I guess, studied the breath work and also tried lots of different techniques to respond to what I'm feeling on a certain day. And also just allowing myself to not do anything or take a step back if I need to. But I think that the biggest part of it has been realizing that actually me and my body, we're in an exclusive partnership of our own outside of anyone else. And the more that I work with it and the more I accept it and listen to it, then the better the outcomes.
I really like that. That's so good. So most women in perimenopause are just being handed a prescription or told, your symptoms are normal. It's just your new normal. This is just your hormones. But what are they actually experiencing from a nervous system standpoint that conventional medicine is just kind of brushing past and not even acknowledging?
Mm. I looked at this a little bit from a hormone perspective, and I started to delve a little bit deeper into it because I am quite spiritual, and spirituality has been something that I've, it's a very broad term. It's a very broad term and a big label that we can give ourselves. But essentially for me, what it meant was, let me look at some of the outside meanings. Let me look at maybe some of the astrological meanings. Let me look at some of the Aboriginal history as well in Australia. And then one thing, I kind of had this light bulb moment, when you're reading something or you hear something and just one thing really stands out for you and resounds for you. The thing for me was that estrogen in a woman's body, when you start perimenopause and obviously go through menopause, that is the one hormone that everyone knows takes a plummet, right? Takes a nosedive.
Yeah.
And when we look at that in a woman in terms of maybe a mother and a nurturer and a wife, that is the hormone that keeps women giving and nurturing. And it's the feminine, it's the representation of the soft feminine. So if you take that away or you reduce it significantly, honestly, that's where I see women, and I've seen it quite a bit with some of my friends and some of the people that I've come across. Women get to that point, right? And they're just like, go away, leave me alone.
Yes.
It's my time. And they just, they're literally telling everyone to fuck off.
Yeah.
And
divorce rates go up.
Divorce rates are sky high in that category of women. And when I looked at it from a spiritual and holistic perspective, that fascinated me.
Yeah.
And it made so much sense that could be occurring, and that women are like sort of just lose their whole maternal instinct. And it's like, this is my time. And
yes.
The challenge of that in this lifetime or in the current world right now is that women are having children a lot later in life. So
yes.
Women that are hitting perimenopause and menopause may still have children at home that they're needing to mother and parent, and a partner, husband that, maybe they've got certain roles in the household. And so how can we try and keep women on track and feeling grounded so that not everything falls apart and has to go, down the drain? So I guess there's a place for Western medicine where they maybe start HRT. Personally, what I did, I did lots of natural therapies for quite some time, and I took some herbal supplements through a naturopath, and I was under naturopathic care. I do take a half dose of HRT now, which is plenty for me. Again, it's been trial and error. And I like to, sort of microdose on things. So I have been on that for a couple of years, and I pretty much left it as long as I could. That was just my preference. It allowed me to actually understand and know what was really going on in my body without anything else, I guess, coming in and sort of masking it. So not covering up any of the symptoms, but actually feeling them and then working with them. So with the breath work, as I said, I think that has been one of the big things, because what happens as well, when your estrogen levels plummet, it can affect your nervous system, and it can affect things like your brain and your rationality. They have said in many studies that your actual brain as a woman, when you move through into menopause, it changes. It changes shape and size. Wow. So if you think about that going on as well, that is going to affect your mood. It is going to affect your energy. So those are the things I guess I work with when I am working with women in this state as well with the breath work. And don't get me wrong, breath work isn't a miracle fix here. It's not going to fix everything, but it's around how can we keep things level? How can we, reduce this intense roller coaster? I've never been a fan of roller coasters, by the way, at the fairground. Cannot handle them at all. How can we, we are going to go through this process, but how can we just how can we normalize it? How can we go, you know what, that's okay. And I'm going to help myself with it.
Yeah, this is such an interesting perspective too, because I hadn't thought about the fact that so many women are starting their families later in life. We kind of have had this roller coaster of themes where women are having children at a younger age, and then it switches to an older age. And right now we're definitely in that phase of women are having children later, and they're also going through this massive life transition at the same time. So finding that, or attempting to find some balance throughout the day, is such an important thing, because you do feel like I've noticed this through every phase of life. It's like not necessarily the death of the old version of you, but it's like this evolution happens, and you really have to buckle in for that roller coaster ride, because whether or not you want to be on it, you're getting on the ride, and there's no press stop button now. So I think it is, like you said, it's a really helpful tool to help women get through these things. And also the theme that I'm kind of picking up on here is just giving yourself grace that these changes are happening, and we need to stop trying to fight against them and just lean into how can we support ourselves more. And one of the things that we talked about before we hit record was your experience with living in Japan and how Japanese women approached menopause. Can you shed some light on this? Because this is also very interesting to me.
So in Eastern culture, Japanese women's, and this is another thing I kind of became a little bit fascinated with, they don't really even have a word in their language that represents the exact same word as menopause. It really just doesn't exist. And a lot of Japanese women don't really experience menopause like we do in the Western world. So whether that's from a perception point of view or from an actual physical body point of view, they don't experience it. I think in the nutritional world, they, mainly put it down to their high level of soy that they have in their diet, and how they live their life. They also have this philosophy in Japan that when you eat, you should only eat until you feel 80% full, and that's where you stop. So you're never actually overloading your digestive system. So when it comes to women, they're actually celebrated. Older people in Japan are widely celebrated for their wisdom and their life experience, and they're not looked upon in a lesser fashion. I think the perception in the Western world for women going through this, and I certainly felt this, is that when you reach this phase in your life, and they love to call it the change, the other side of the change, there's really nothing for you. And you almost feel this sense of being devalued, whether that's I'm not young enough and, employment wise, I'm not useful anymore. And I'm going to get overweight and I'm going to get wrinkly. And I think I certainly felt that I didn't want to just give into that. I didn't want to give into that perception. But I can understand that women who are still mothers, still managing jobs, still managing a household, and still parenting children get to a point where, you know what, they don't have any time for themselves. And so their bodies are going through this process, but they don't even have the chance to stop and to pause and actually form that relationship with their body, that they're working alongside each other and they're working together. And that's something that I would love to work with more women around to try and change that for them. When I say working with my body, I just want to tap a little bit into some of the things that I was doing for myself as a younger woman that I realized did not work anymore. And that was also part of the hormone shifts and the changes in the moon cycle. And that was what I was eating, maybe when I was eating, at what times of day, probably portion sizes, and also how I was moving my body. And that needed to change as well. And it's not one size fits all. It's been trial and error over a 5-year period to find what worked for me. And I believe, of course, there's commonalities between us all, but every single woman's body is different. If no one is going to go through probably exactly the same number of hot flushes. Some people don't even have them. I've never had any. It's everyone is unique. And so it's about working with ourselves. So the first point was me. I was like, okay, I actually need to become friends with myself for starters, which was a big thing for me to do. And then take it from there. And small steps, gentle steps, and also practicing forgiveness if maybe I didn't do something for myself that wasn't really helping me through the menopausal process, and being able to hit the reset button and do something differently the next day. But I certainly didn't feel the desire to just give in to what the world out there was telling me, put it that way.
Yeah, I love that. Breaking free from what is a conventional standard norm. I totally understand that. I feel like I've broken free from so many societal norms and gone the complete opposite way. But I think we really need to look at this life transition as the after party. This is where women get to start making a lot of changes for themselves, whether that's with the way that they're eating, which is, it feels like a non-negotiable. Like you really have to adjust the way that you're eating. Fasting, especially what was working for women in the past 10 years ago, they literally can't rely on that strategy anymore. Exercise looks completely different. We have to adjust. We have to really monitor our cortisol levels. All these things have to change. And I think this is also why we see this natural shift for entrepreneurs, changing what they're doing, stepping into the thing that they want to do, or, doing a complete 180 and changing their industry and changing their career path as they just desire to do so, kind of in an unapologetic way. One of the other things that we had talked about before we hit record was you're noticing more men coming into your world for support. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, I think also managing probably as well. I think where as a woman, I actually haven't been in a long-term relationship for a long time, but if I was, I think men also need to know about what's going on and understand the whole process. And I think that's one thing for people that are going through perimenopause and menopause. If you're in a marriage or a long-term partnership is the guy actually understanding what's really going on for a woman. I've heard way too many men and women just talk about women in this phase, being very dismissive and saying, she's just gone crazy.
Oh, I hate that. I hate that word.
It's not good enough. It's actually not good enough. And so I've had some men, that I'm working with that. And also, I think also from men who want to understand a little bit more, they want to find someone that can give them the time and the space to be listened to, who are actually trying to understand what is their role in the world. What is their role for women? What is their role alongside women? What is their role when they're working with women? What is their role now to be a partner to women? And they're looking for that. And in the same way as women are coming to me, a lot of them are coming to me wanting some tools to manage the stress in their lives, regulate their nervous system, and probably make some shifts and changes within themselves as well, and recognizing that they can also be vulnerable and still be accepted and still not feel that they can't be a man. And I think that's happening quite a lot in the world. And I know from my position and some of the people that I work with, certainly on the podcast that Jessie and I have launched, there is nothing nicer and more beautiful to witness is to see men and women reconnecting and engaging and working alongside each other. And I think there's been this shift in society where we've just created this massive gap. Women started to have careers and create their own identities outside of being a mother and a partner, or just, somebody that works for someone else. So we've seen this massive leap in women stepping in and being able to be independent. And it's not about taking away the masculine at all. It's maybe redefined what their role needs to be. Maybe it does need to be a little bit more supportive and tapped into emotional intelligence. And I think men need guidance on that. That's what men are coming to me to ask, to seek.
Yeah.
What do I need to do here? Can you show me the way I want to be? I want to be someone else. I want to be there, but I just don't know how to do it.
Yeah. And I think that that's so amazing to see that men are stepping into this, because what ends up happening is when a woman feels safe with her partner or spouse or whatever it is, her boss, like coworker, whatever, it allows her to soften. Like at our core, we want to be safe. We want to feel like we can step into our feminine energy and it will be embraced. And I think that the more men have an understanding of women and our needs, especially during a massive transition period in our life, and that not even just menopause, but like motherhood, a career pivot, there's a massive transition that's happening. And when men understand how to support the women in their lives, that naturally balances the dynamic, right? Like we're seeing men come into their natural innate role, which allows a woman to step into her natural innate role and to do it from a place where she's actually energized and not depleted. Women in business and entrepreneurship often feel like they are carrying everything. They often feel like they will be the default parent. They will be the one mentally holding the grocery list, all the appointments, all the scheduling of everyone's lives, including their own. And when a man can step into his masculine and support her in a way, that's where women really get to rise and feel happy. I think there's a lot of women, sadly, that live very unhappy lives. They're getting through the day. They're getting through the career. They're doing what they need to do to raise the family. And then eventually you become an empty nester. And you have this crises that you're trying to get through of like, who am I? What is my purpose? What do I do now? Coupling that on top of the dip in estrogen that will naturally happen. And you're just like, fuck it all.
Yeah.
Like,
So true. And honestly, that is exactly what happened to me because I was a single mum. I was working in the corporate world. I had 2 children and I was in my masculine all the time.
Yeah.
And I literally did hit crisis point. And I had no idea when I became an empty nester 5 years ago. I actually had no idea what my identity was because my identity was, single mum, parent,
Yeah.
and corporate worker. And I'd had enough. I didn't want to be that person anymore. I didn't want to do what I was doing anymore. And I was at crisis point. So and I can say, having done these things over the last 5 years and formed this beautiful partnership with myself, which I would love everyone to feel, that actually my life is simpler. I'm the happiest I've probably ever been within my heart. And everything is pretty calm. And I think
Yes.
every woman deserves that. And I'm being able to really soften into my feminine. And it feels so good as a woman to be
Yeah.
able to feel that. I totally agree.
And now you get to be supportive in a different way, right? I think women at our core, we will still always be caregivers in some regard, even if we're just taking care of a house plant. Like we are like, I'm on it. Not me personally. I murder every plant that I've ever had, but I take great care of my kids and my husband. But now you're able to support women through the work that you get to do. You've also just launched a brand new, like what, last week, 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, nearly a week ago.
Yeah. So the new podcast is called Angels on the Airwaves. Can you let the listeners know what like tell us about how this came to be and how you got to becoming a podcaster?
Oh, that's well, Jesse and I have touched on this so much. So Jesse, who is my co-founder, and I used to be neighbors, and used to live in the same area until she went through a real medical adversity, and we sort of didn't have much contact with each other because she moved away while she was in recovery. And then probably the end of last year, definitely by January, I saw her kind of like as a reinvented self, having gone through this medical recovery, showing up online. And I reached out to her and we reconnected and we started chatting a lot more. And we just started talking a lot more. And then we realized so much about each other that we hadn't had the opportunity to talk about when we were neighbors, mainly because I was working away a lot. And unfortunately, Jessie wasn't well at the time. So I didn't see her a lot. And when I did see her, it was normally in a care capacity and or helping her out, And we started just talking. That's how it started. I even said to her the other day, I was like, I'm actually not sure how this really came about, but it has. And we're just 2 people, ordinary people, who started to share our own journeys and our own stories and realized that we were having conversations with other people who also were ordinary people who had pretty extraordinary stories. And we were like, actually, we want to share that. We want to take that out in the world and let some ordinary people just tell their story and share and potentially impact someone who might be going through something similar and give them help, give them hope, give them encouragement. And there's so many people doing amazing things out there. And that's how it was born. We pretty much started it up all on our own from the ground up. There's no bells and whistles here. And it's just actually about giving the floor to people that, whose voice wants to be heard and to impact and form a little bit of a global community as well. It's been amazing. So I would say from start to finish, it's been about 3 months in the making. We've both been working still, so there's been some late nights and some weekends, but it's been so much fun. It really has.
Yes. And it's a great podcast. We'll make sure that it's linked below in the show notes. Beck, what are some of the ways that people can get in touch with you, enter your world, and experience some of your, dare I say, therapeutic magic?
So I'm currently on Instagram as Breath with Beck. I'm also on Facebook as Rebecca Henwood. And at the moment, I'm doing mostly online, but I am available to do any in-person events, workshops, facilitations, whether that's in a more healing environment, it could be in a corporate environment. I'm open to all of those. And that's probably the best place to find me right now.
Okay, fantastic. We'll make sure all your contact info is linked below. Go and check out Beck's Instagram, get in touch with her for all your breathwork needs. Thank you so much for joining me today. This was a lovely conversation, and I really enjoyed our time together.
Yeah, likewise, Lee. Thank you so much as well. And I look forward to, speaking to you again in the future.
Absolutely.